What cleats should I get between the new Mercurials and the Spider-Man Nemesis? I'm a winger with speed and dribbling. Hey, you want to answer this? I'd buy the Mercurials. What's going on, guys? Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com bringing you another SR4U Q A video, your football boot related questions and my answers to them, all pulled from my Instagram, which is SR4U_Josh. You see it on screen right now, and it is also linked down below in the description. If you have a football boot related question that you'd like me to potentially answer in the next episode, make sure you go and follow me there if you aren't already. And I'm only a couple thousand followers away from 300,000, so make sure you go follow. Also, if you guys enjoy the Q&A series on the channel and want to see it continue, don't forget to support this one with a like. And if you're new here watching for the first time and don't want to miss out on daily content from me, make sure you hit that subscribe button along with the little bell notification so you get notified when the next new video goes live. What is your most used skill move? Fun fact about me, I don't really do skills. There's definitely a time when I was like 13, 14 years old when I would practice skill moves regularly and I'd try to incorporate stuff like step overs and just fancier moves in general into the match. Coaches typically don't like that. Most of the time it's kind of unnecessary. It just doesn't end up working out. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that it's just not really my style and it's not the best way to be effective. That is kind of my view on playing now. I try to be as efficient as possible and I want to make sure that everything I'm doing is for the right reason. So for me, I would kind of describe myself as a pretty simple footballer in regards to my style of play. So the likelihood of me doing step overs in a real serious match, very, very unlikely. I would say the most skill move that, if you want to even call it a skill move, that you'd see me do is maybe like a no-look pass. Other than that, I play pretty straightforward. If Nike or Adidas or Puma were to create a new silo, what would you want it to be like? First off, Adidas should actually bring back the Predator because what we have now is not a Predator. For Puma, I would say the King series, but they just brought it back in the form of the King Platinum, and I think they did a really, really good job. I know there's going to be some people that would make the argument for the Evo Speed line, but I don't really think that there was one Evo Speed model in particular that was that great. Definitely the Evo Power line is something that I was a big fan of. So I guess in terms of what they don't offer right now, something along the lines of the Evo Power concept is what I would like to see. And then for Nike, it's tricky because I am a huge fan of the T90 laser series, and I don't think it's a good idea for them to try and bring back anything like an old school T90 laser because they were so kind of bulky. They had some success with the limited edition laser one that they did, but as a regular release, I'm not sure something like that would actually do that well. So I think a more realistic answer that makes sense for them from a sales standpoint is bring back the Superfly as an actual Superfly. I'm sick of this Vapor Superfly being the same thing that they've been doing over the last couple of generations. For me, the Superfly is supposed to represent the craziest, wildest, most high-tech football boot that money can buy, and right now it's just a variant of the Mercurial Vapor, which I don't think is right. Kill off the Superfly temporarily and then bring it back as something totally crazy that we've never seen before. Hey Jabrak Ojama, what is your favorite speed boot of all time, Nike and Adidas? First off, impressive name. As far as your question is concerned, I think for Adidas, my answer is pretty straightforward. I think the best speed boot they've ever made was the 2014 F50 Adizero. I think that was the best of the best. You can make an argument for the leather variant of the 2010 F50 Adizero, which would have been the very first generation. But for me in 2014, with the hybrid touch upper, the synthetic model, that was the best speed boot that Adidas has ever put out. But I do think what they've done with the X series is also really good. As far as Nike is concerned, they pretty much invented the speed boot category with the Mercurial series, which is part of the reason why the series is still so popular to this very day. In terms of my favorite speed boot from the Nike brand, in terms of like sentimental values, boots that I really liked as a kid, it'd probably be the Mercurial Vapor 4 SL, but in terms of objective performance, that's not actually a very good pair of football boots at all. So for me, I would say right now, and I hate to say it because it is the newest thing and I don't like jumping on the hype bandwagon, but I really feel like this latest generation of Mercurials, Vapor 13 or Superfly 7 Elite, whichever one you prefer, those are the two best speed boots that Nike has truly ever made. I think there's an argument for something like a Mercurial Vapor 10. I know a lot of people really like the Vapor 8 as well. The Flyknit Ultra as a limited edition release is definitely up there as well. Everyone kind of has their personal favorite Mercurial, but for me, if you're talking about the very best one, I think it's what they just released last week. Hey James, does using leather boots on artificial grass shorten their lifetime? Using absolutely any football boots on artificial grass will shorten the lifespan of those boots. Just as an example, when you slide on a natural grass field, at least one that's well kept, you just slide, nothing nothing happens. But when you slide on an artificial grass field, you're bleeding. It's basically like sliding on hot sandpaper. And that's the difference. Artificial grass is just harder on anything it comes in contact with, football boots included. Hey Joshy, what's the best way to get back to match fitness after a long break, but you don't have a pitch available to you? Assuming that you haven't injured yourself, at which point you definitely should rehab whatever body part that you've injured. But if it's just a matter of getting in shape to run for extended periods of time again, that's something that you can't really rush. It just takes time to get your body conditioned again to putting itself under pretty high amounts of stress, because your body does not want to run around for 90 minutes straight. So what I would personally do is mostly just focus on running stuff. I think jogging or running at a very steady pace, kind of a slightly higher pace for half an hour to 45 minutes, whatever you can handle during your first couple of sessions, definitely do that. And then once you're done, I would go into sprints, I would go into some agility drills. And again, just get your body used to running and making quick changes of direction, stuff like that. Whatever you find that your strengths are, that's the stuff that you should work on and get used to doing again. And over the course of maybe a week or two, you could definitely get close to being match fit, given that you haven't put on tons of weight or done something completely abnormal for a very long time. Obviously, the more out of shape you are, the longer it's going to take to get back into shape. But definitely running is something that I would focus on. And that's not to say that you shouldn't do any ball work, because you absolutely should. But I've always found that when I'm in really good shape, all of that comes a lot easier because I'm not focusing on the fact that I'm constantly getting tired. I'm just playing the game because I'm in good shape. Which brand is the closest to challenging Nike and Adidas in your opinion, and why? I don't think anyone's challenging them from the perspective that they're coming out with new products and people are considering those over what Nike and Adidas is making, because that's just not the case. But in terms of like quality of product, objective performance characteristics, I think that probably the top brand outside of Nike and Adidas right now is Mizuno, that I legitimately feel like they are making boots that are as good, if not better, than some Nike and Adidas products. Other than that, Puma makes some good stuff. Lotto makes some good stuff right now. I think New Balance has some solid boots at the moment as well. There are definitely other options outside of Nike and Adidas, just depending on what you're looking for. But in terms of like one brand coming up and potentially dethroning one of those two brands, that's just not going to happen. Hey Yaroslav, do you think a stiffer sole plate is always better than one that is not as stiff, or the other way around? This is really a personal preference thing, because for me, I personally prefer a more flexible sole plate, something that flexes more naturally with my foot. It's part of the reason why I'm such a big fan of the new Mizuno Rebula 3 sole plate. I think it's really, really good. It's got just the right amount of stiffness, but it seems to move with your foot just very, very closely, where you look at a guy like J Mike from Unisport, who I do the Boot Nerds podcast with, that you should absolutely go and subscribe to that channel if you haven't done so already. He's going to tell you the exact opposite of what I just said, where he prefers something that is a little bit stiffer, has a little bit more of kind of a spring back effect. And again, it's just a matter of personal preference. It's hard to say that one is better than the other in terms of performance. It's more so just a matter of what you feel more comfortable with. I think ultimately you're going to get used to whatever type of sole plate you have under your feet while you're playing. I'm not saying that I couldn't play with a stiff sole plate, but if I'm having the choice, I prefer something a little bit more flexible. Hey Justin, if Under Armour would make a spectacular boot, do you think it would sell and make them more well known? Short answer to that is no. And the reason why I say that is because Under Armour has actually put out some legitimately great football boots, but still nobody cares. The first example I would say is the Under Armour Blur Carbon 3, which was an excellent boot. I think it goes down as one of my all-time favorites, if I'm being honest. Really, really enjoyed playing in those, specifically the kangaroo leather upper variation. But again, nobody really cared. Some of the boots they've had have been okay, but a lot of people really just don't care for the way that they look. And then I guess more recently, the Clutch Fit series I thought was great. All three generations were really good, each new one being better than the last. But again, people just can't get past the fact that it's an Under Armour football boot. And then what they're doing right now is kind of just spiraling in a direction that they shouldn't be spiraling into. I'm not sure what the future holds for Under Armour, but I don't think that it's a brand that will really ever have a major name or a major, I guess, place in the football boot industry, just because they do something really, really good and then they do something so questionable, and it just seems to be back and forth. They're not consistent enough, and that lack of consistency over the last, I don't know, 12 years, 10 years, however long they've been making football boots for, It's just gotten them to a point where I don't think they can ever build a solid reputation. They make great products, but people just don't care about their football boots. Yo Jacoby, is the top tier boots worth the money over the first takedown models? I mean, worth is something that you really have to determine for yourself. For me, it's pretty much worth it 99% of the time to get the top end model over the takedown. It's going to be better in terms of quality, in terms of fit, in terms of materials, in terms of overall experience, and that is something that is worth it to me. If that's not worth it to you, then maybe you'd be happier with the first takedown model, but in terms of having the best of the best, definitely the top end model is the way to go. Anyways, guys, that is it for another Q&A video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. Again, if you have a question that you'd like me to answer potentially in the next Q&A episode, make sure you go and follow me on Instagram, SR4U_Josh. See it on screen. It is also linked down below. If you have any questions regarding anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to ask them down below in the comment section. I'll do my best to get an answer out to you as soon as I possibly can. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my other social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.